2v2 is easily the most popular game mode in Rocket League. Despite how often it's played though, many players still make a lot of unforced mistakes. So today we'll be trying to help you improve your 2v2 gameplay by counting down the top 5 biggest mistakes that you need to avoid to be successful in 2v2 Rocket League. So the first thing we'll be talking about here is avoiding diving in as the last man back. I'm sure many of us have heard this idea before. Obviously, when you're the last player back on your team, you don't want to be overcommitting on the offensive end, and therefore giving up an open net behind you. So let's talk about how to identify when you're in this situation, and what you should be thinking while you're in it. We can see that we are starting our rotation back here, and our teammate is currently challenging the ball. Now our first priority is to get boost as quickly as possible so we can circle back into this play, but depending on how this challenge goes, we may need to redirect our path to better support our teammates. So as we roll this forward slightly, we pick up the full boost, perfect, so now we can cut back on the play if the ball does fall to us. But instead, our teammate's challenge does result in free possession for the opponent. Now this is the really important question you need to ask yourself to identify whether you should go or whether you should wait. The main question is, where is my teammate and how quickly can they get back behind me? If they cannot get back behind you before you are able to put in the challenge, then it is extremely dangerous to go for. Because if you get beat going for a challenge and your teammate's not back yet, that is just a wide open net. If we look at this situation here, there is no way our teammate is getting back behind us if we go for this ball right now and lose it. So we do need to try to buy time here by just staying in front of the ball to try to allow our teammate to get back to support us. The other important thing we need to consider is when we do go for this challenge, how obvious is it going to be to the ball carrier? Because in this instance, we're coming out of the side of his camera. So even with the ball on his car, he can still see us very clearly in his frame of view. So if we just dash right in front of where he's driving, he will easily see us coming and will just take the ball over the top of us. So what could be really good in this instance is just slightly going forward, faking the challenge, and then turning back. By doing this, we hope to force him to flick the ball and then allow ourselves to be in a position to defend it. When you're the last man back, the general rule of thumb is you don't want to commit for the ball until you know you'll have support behind you should you lose it. In this instance, we don't make that check, we just full send right for it, full jump, full everything, and it results in the ball just bouncing right into our net. Next on our list, we really want to make sure that we never play the ball in such a way that sets our opponents up for easy opportunities. The two main culprits of this idea involve the sidewalls and the backboard. On offense, if your teammate is recovering out of your opponent's net and you're approaching from the midfield and you just bang the ball off the backboard so that it bounces back out, now you and your teammate are both recovering and you've given your opponents a free counterattack. It works the same way hitting the ball off the sidewall when you have no one to be able to follow up that touch, which is what we're going to see here. So we can see my teammate here is taking a challenge on this sidewall here. We're going to be rotating back into net and be in a position to play the ball wherever it may go off of this initial challenge. So as we'll see, ball bounces, very easy to deal with this one. Now you may have noticed that we have already jumped in this instance. So we're trying to play this ball as fast as possible, but by jumping this quickly, we're limiting the amount of control we have over the direction of our touch, because we're already kind of committing in where we're going. Now in this situation, what we really want to do is we want to keep this ball along the corner so we can continue to follow it along the wall. What we absolutely want to avoid in this instance is smacking this ball directly off the sidewall in such a way that our opponent approaching out of the midfield is the only one that can get to it. We already know our teammate is going to be recovering out here, And after we go for this ball, we will also be recovering out of the midfield, so we don't want to be giving up any free shooting opportunities. You need to make sure that you're always sending the ball to as safe a place as possible, either where you or your teammate can be the next ones to follow it up. Because as we'll see here, we go ahead and jump out, and like we said, we jumped really early, so we had to use our flip to just get a touch on the ball because we slightly misread it. We're going to send this ball right off the sidewall, and our opponent is the first one there. Luckily, he doesn't put the best shot on target, and my teammate is able to make a fantastic save, but we put him in a terrible spot by just slamming that ball off the sidewall when neither myself or my teammate would have been able to follow up on it. Next up, we want to talk about utilizing space. One of the great things about 2s is that there is so much more space on the field as compared to 3s, which means you have more time on the ball to be threatening with it. So it is really important to identify when you have space on the field so that you can be as in control of the game as possible. So we'll take a look here at a moment where we didn't utilize space all that well, and we'll show what you can look for to identify that you do have space to work with. So this ball is rolling up the wall here. We go ahead and take this 50. Now we do have full boost here as we come back down the wall. And now here's the decision point. So we know we have that player behind us, but we're not overly worried about him right now. What we want to know is what is this player doing? Because that is what determines whether we need to drive into this ball and boom it downfield, or whether we're actually going to have space to make a play with it. So if we take a look here, he's flipping forward here. He's turning to his left now, and now he's turning out to the side and looks to be turning back to net, identifying that he is beaten to this ball by ourselves. So the entire time we're approaching this ball, we just need to be staring down our opponent so we can figure out what it is we need to do to be the most effective. Seeing that he's turning off, I'd like to take control of this ball and try to put on a threatening opportunity, maybe buy some time for my teammate to come across and go for a demo, just put pressure on this guy and make his life really awkward. So let's see what we do here. We just kind of drive forward, and we do just boom it, but like we said, it's kind of to the middle of nowhere, and it really doesn't do a whole lot for us. Our opponent's able to get back, no problem, although he does almost have a very awkward touch there. But you can see that we didn't utilize the space we had on the field all that well, gave the ball up for free, and allowed our opponent to cover back and get the clear off his own backboard without a whole lot of threat on him. At the end of the day, identifying space is all about knowing where your opponents are, what direction they're headed, and what speed they're headed in that direction. If they're charging directly at you, then you obviously don't have space on the ball. But if they're turning off to the side or driving forward leisurely, then you should utilize that space to be able to make a more threatening play. Next up, we want to talk about the speed of our play. You see, as players get higher in the ranks, a common misconception is that the cars are just constantly moving around the field at a faster speed. And while it is often true that the players are moving quicker around the field, the general increase in speed of play largely comes from how the players are positioned so they can utilize their resources as effectively as possible. So the really important lesson is to not play too fast. It is so important in this game to arrive where you need to be when you need to be there. If your car is simply moving too fast, then you need to hit the brakes, and it causes you to be in a bit of an awkward situation, as we're going to see in this moment here. So we'll see this ball is dropping down. We're going to go ahead and try to catch it. Results in this challenge along the sidewall. That's totally fine. So at this precise moment here, we see that Landon's going to be driving across the net as this ball flies across, but our teammate easily has the jump up here and the clear. If by whatever chance Landon goes and gets a bump here and the ball just lands in front, there is almost nothing that we can do to get back in time. So with that in mind, we do not need to absolutely full sprint in any direction here because we want to see the results of this before we fully commit to where we need to go. Because if we rush back and the ball ends up like over here, Now we have to do this weird like U-turn around and then work our way back out, and it's just a whole big mess that we don't need to deal with. In this instance, what I'd like to see is it's fine for us to turn back towards the net, but I don't think we need to boost or flip or anything. We can just drive leisurely in this direction and then turn along the wall depending on if the play is still over in this area. And that way, if the play does spill out over here, then from any point in this path, we can easily wheel our way around and get back towards the ball very quickly if we need to. And we don't end up here where there's no reason for us to be. So we kind of start to do this, we're driving, this is all great, but then as soon as my teammate has this little flub up in front of the net, we absolutely panic and full send it towards this ball. And again, there's no reason to do this. If we're looking at the state of the play, one opponent's way out here, so we don't have to worry about that. And the other opponent is recovering in our opposite corner, so we're not really worried about him wheeling around before my teammate would be able to recover. So again, we can just take our time. The one thing we don't want to do is we don't want to have both of our cars covering the same area of the field, because that does us very little good. So we should look for any other option here outside of just sprinting back to where our teammate already is, because he's not in that much trouble that he needs help immediately. But for whatever reason, we absolutely fly back, and now, oh look, we're stuck here. We've now killed our momentum by hitting the brakes, and now we're awkwardly behind our teammate. Well, what are we really gonna do here? Not a whole lot. Okay, we'll work our way out. At the end of the day, this is a very minor example. It doesn't result in anything really bad, but it's just poor positioning like this that can get you in trouble. Because if there was some kind of 50-50 here, let's just say, for example, that Solus was able to pounce on this ball and it pinched straight up into the ceiling, well, now Landon is approaching this ball from an angle and has a much better attacking angle on this ball than we do sitting right under it. Whereas instead, if we were a little further back, say like back here, as this was all happening, any kind of challenge that would come out, we would be able to react to very quickly. But by being here in the middle of the net, our options are very limited. So I challenge you to really keep an eye on what's actually happening in the play and really work to determine if a situation is dangerous. If it's not, you don't need to be rushing back to net to try to cover something that's not even a threat. Now, the last thing we want to talk about today is that you always want to be in a position to support your teammate. You never want to be leaving your teammate back alone on an island if you can help it. And this is extremely true on kickoffs. Because kickoffs in twos can be so volatile, it is important to recognize when you need to get back as quickly as possible so that you can support your teammate. So we're going to be looking at an example here of where I do this rather poorly. We're going to be going for this kickoff here, obviously, and then the natural inclination off of this kickoff is to go get this mid boost and then circle back. But that is not always the case, and it is really important that you don't go on autopilot on all of these kickoffs to immediately go get the mid boost, and you actually identify what's happening in the play before you decide where to go off of this initial challenge. So let's go ahead and take a look at where this ball goes as we challenge it here in the midfield. Boom, off the side wall. So now our teammate theoretically either cheated up or he's in the back corner. So we're gonna go ahead and flip over to the side, but you'll notice that my teammate's now in a bit of trouble here because he's flipping back this way, it looks like. Opponent's getting the mid boost, and this ball is gonna be bouncing back out to the midfield for easy control. So you'll notice how quickly I toggled off ball cam in this situation, and that is actually a massive mistake, because I couldn't keep an eye on exactly what was happening in the play, and instead just tunnel visioned on this boost, and didn't even think about the fact that I might want to be back to support my teammate. I could make the decision that instead of going for this mid boost, I would just rotate this great path of pads. So we get this initial challenge here, and then instead of going for the mid boost, we can just go one pad here, one pad here, one pad here, and then we're in a position to support our teammate. Can even cut across if we have the opportunity to allow him to recover back and be the furthest one back. But taking these boost pads will allow us to remain in the play instead of going all the way out to the side and then having to take a mile walk to get back. This entire idea all comes down to supporting your teammates. And if the ball ends up in an awkward spot for them, you want to make sure that you can get back to support them in that awkward situation. Because what we'll see here, we go all the way out to the corner, and now the ball bounces into the midfield. So now let's say instead of being all the way out in the corner, we were instead like here. Sure, we might not get back to make a play on this ball, but we're at least in a position where we can be a part of the conversation, and we're not out in the middle of nowhere where we can't do a gosh darn thing to support our teammate. So as you're working around the field, regardless of the situation you're in, always be thinking, what can I do in this moment to make my teammate's life easier? And the answer is never run away from the play. I do hope you guys found this video helpful. If you did, make sure you click that subscribe button right down below so you make sure you don't miss any future Rocket League content. Additionally, if you'd like to be more involved in this community, please consider joining my Discord, link down in the description. So thank you everybody so much for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you next time. See you later, guys. Thank you.